So I'm Jeff Dillon, founder of EdTech Connect. I was in academia for 21 years as a web director. I've spent my career focusing on the digital front door to colleges. I've worked both on the marketing side and the IT side of the house. And I want to thank all of you who are part of our growing community. We help higher education leaders choose technology that moves their institutions forward. That's really our mission. And we do this through webinars like this, my blog, my podcast, our newsletter that I started almost 15 years ago, that's grown to a subscriber list of over 38,000. And we have near real-time tech information now for almost every institution in the US. We also now have over 1,000 solutions that have been curated by higher ed professionals. So today's conversation is about AI and data. And earlier this year, the Chronicle of Higher Education and Search Stacks, a search experience company focused on higher ed, um, some research, some original research. They surveyed 225 higher ed leaders to dig into how digital leaders perceive their current state with where they want their digital experience to be, what's important to them. And some interesting stats came out of that. Only 19% of web teams felt like they deliver a great website experience. I mean, the reverse stat is the big one there, right? 81% of these respondents don't feel like they're delivering a great website experience. Not a huge surprise. The number's a little higher than I thought, but 59% don't track even who uses their search bar. So we're gonna talk. I'm kind of the intro to the keynote, and I'm talking about your search, what you own in my little intro here. We're gonna talk a lot about the LLMs and that, but that's what we're getting at here is that search bar on your campus homepage is a gold mine that's not being tapped into. 64% never look at their top queries. Even the tools will provide that they're not looking at that. And the big one that I like to always point out is that 92% ignore their no search results. So you don't know what students are not finding. 58, the big gap we saw too is there's an AI maturity gap. The digital um, leaders know they're here and they're behind, and they want to adopt AI, but they're just not sure how. 84%, you know, think their maturity is earlier, not started. So Brian will talk directly to that. We know that when Google's AI overviews summarize content directly in the search results, traffic doesn't just dip, it collapses. Mail Online lost 56% of his clicks and nearly 20% year-over-year traffic. Now, as that same pattern plays out across higher ed websites, prospective students searching for programs or faculty or tuition info could get all their answers from AI snippets, never visiting your site. So that's why the traffic that's on your site, you need to own your search. It's suddenly strategic because when they get to your site, they're at a different point in their journey. It's your one channel where you can control the discovery experience, the data, the conversion path. So while Google takes away traffic, your internal search can give it back. Um, and it's not just publishers seeing the drop. Even Google admits when what's happening with AI overviews, when they appear, click-through rates fall by more than a third. That's Google's own data. So it's not an isolated issue. It's a fundamental shift in how people find and consume information. Search is becoming an answer engine, not just a traffic driver. So we all know this. There's a lot of just data to back it up, which brings us back to your own website. If Google's AI is taking clicks away, your AI powered site search has to do the opposite. It has to give users to stay and explore and convert once they're on your site. So think of it as building your own AI overview, but one that keeps users in your ecosystem instead of sending them somewhere else. So this chart came from some research from Orbit Media. If everyone knows, Andy Crestodina does amazing market research, great speaker. He was on one of our webinars a month or two ago. And they did this year, and it highlights how people instinctively choose different tools depending on what they need. For quick facts or finding business, Google still dominates. But as the task gets more complex, like understanding why something matters or getting step-by-step help like with AI tools like ChatGPT, um, ChatGPT plays a bigger role then. And if you think about a prospective student on your website, if your search experience is only built for quick answers, like a basic list of links, you're missing that opportunity to serve a deeper, more personalized questions. Which program is right for me? What what is campus life really like? So we all know higher ed content is complex. Students need both speed and context, and this is where combining AI with your site search can move the needle, especially in turning visits into decisions. So I want to give you one practical tip, and that is probably the biggest gap in data that I see out there is in no result searches. And again, this is your search that maybe it's your IT team that owns that search bar, but right now it's marketing and IT that have to figure this out generally. And there's a myth that that search bar on your campus homepage is dead and it's only used by internal audiences, and that everyone's using AI like ChatGPT search. And I've worked with dozens of colleges in the last just few months and this year, and I've seen the search data for that search bar. And I can tell you that an average mid-sized school is getting tens of thousands of searches. And guess what the top searches are? They're related to academic programs. So what you're looking at here is a composite list of some of them aren't so common, like that course catalog one. People probably always ask, like, why is that a no result search? Well, guess what? That was just a hot minute in time when this web director did a snapshot of their no results and found out their course catalog people were changing out their system and didn't tell central IT. So that does happen too. I mean, your search tool can be a monitoring tool as well. But really, the lesson here is you can get some business decisions from your no result searches. Like one school saw they saw dental hygiene being a top no result search. So they're investigating adding that program to their curriculum. So this is where students are telling us exactly what they want that we're often not delivering and they're bouncing. So it's it's common to see campus acronyms, academic programs, and this is the opportunity to fix those dead ends, either by setting up synonyms or filling content gaps. And I often get the question when I show this, well, why can't AI just take care of this? And this is where it's a philosophy. I think AI is great, but we still need a practical approach. Search is really hard. You first have to focus on the core principles like relevance, filters, analytics. And yes, these LLMs are great. We need to leverage the power of these, but with guardrails. Um, but the most important thing, and I think a lot of companies and a lot of implementations are missing, is that a human needs to be in the loop. And there are some pretty innovative ways to pull this off to leverage AI, but still have control. And it really should be a hybrid approach. So that's my intro to our guest speaker, Brian Piper. I want to introduce Brian. Um, Brian Piper is a respected author, educator. He has 4 books on content marketing. He's an international keynote speaker who's been shaping the future of content and digital strategy. I see him at the conferences all the time. Sometimes I have to compete with his session. I'm like, oh gosh, Brian's sessions always fill up. So he's helped organizations across higher education and beyond integrate AI into their content operations ethically, effectively. He's taught around the world. He's led content strategy at the University of Rochester and now advises teams on using AI to improve creativity, efficiency, and impact. And he's known for blending data, storytelling, and innovation into practical frameworks to help institutions move from experimentation to transformation. And I think he's going to be at Maycon next week. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Brian.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate the introduction. And today, thank you all for joining me. We're going to be talking about using AI to, let's share here, using AI and data to make the most of content you've already created. Before talk about this, though, I want to paint a picture for you, though. So I'm 14,000 feet above the ground, hanging on the outside of the airplane, getting ready to let go. So I've been jumping out of planes for over 35 years and teaching other people to do it for 25 of those. I've got over 3,000 skydives, and 700 of those were with either other people strapped to the front of me or me holding on to them. So I'm used to dealing with people facing fear and uncertainty. But this time was different because this time I was looking back in at my daughter, who was crouching in the door getting ready to jump. And it was at this moment right here where she turned her head and locked eyes with me. And for just a moment, I saw the desperation and panic in her face. And I couldn't let her know that I was feeling the same thing. I mean, this was my baby girl. I spent the last 18 years doing everything I could to protect her from harm and help alleviate her fears and uncertainties. And now I was watching her get ready to jump out of a plane by herself for the first time. And it was all my fault, really. But she had all the tools she needed. Her training was comprehensive. We had gone through every possible scenario she might encounter and practiced how to deal with them. But that ability to overcome that fear in the moment is where it all comes together. And then with a nod and a ready, set, go, we left the plane together. And she did great because she was ready. She was prepared mentally and physically. We had taken all those little steps that we needed to take to get her to the door. And that moment of stepping into uncertainty, that is exactly where higher ed finds itself today with AI. So we face change and fear all the time in our jobs, especially these days. And most of that fear comes from change. We like structure, we like predictability and consistency, but we all have to figure out how to overcome challenges every day in a way that keeps us moving forward, whether it's taking on a new role or meeting your goals or trying to figure out how to integrate this technology into your jobs that is going to replace parts of your job. Fear is not a sign that you're doing the wrong thing. It's proof that what you're doing matters. Um, in skydiving, we don't ever start at the door of the plane. We start on the ground talking about the basics, the fundamentals of the gear, what you're going to experience, and how to react. We normalize it, we break it down into these understandable components. And that's what we're going to be talking about today with AI. So I'm a AI integration and content marketing consultant. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. This QR code goes to my LinkedIn. So if you send me a connection request today, I'll send you all the resources from the talk, the slide deck, the templates, the prompts, the links to the custom GPTs. As Jeff mentioned, I'm the author of Epic Content Marketing for Higher Education. I host the podcast AI for You, which is all about integrating AI into higher education. So a little over 2 years ago, Ethan Mollick came out with this article where he basically said, we can expect the capabilities of these tools to double every 5 to 14 months. And he's been pretty much right on track, maybe even a little underestimating. And then we get other leaders from the AI industry like Dario Amodei, the founder of Anthropic, who say things like, everything that human workers do now will eventually be done by AI. So how do we prepare ourselves for this? How do we prepare our institutions for that type of change? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, I want to talk about dinner. So we're all involved in dinner, whether it's eating it, cooking it, preparing it, shopping, right? We've all got some role in dinner. So in my house, I'm the cook and the shopper. My wife and I have 6 kids between the two of us, so we do a lot of shopping and eating. And I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the kids want for dinner. So typically, Saturday night we'll be playing some games and sitting around, and I'll say, "Hey, I'm going shopping tomorrow. What does everybody want for dinner?" And you know what I get, right? Crickets. I mean, they don't want crickets, but like they're no help. They give me no ideas. So then I have to spend my time figuring out what we're going to eat all week, getting the shopping list together, you know, going back kind of the same meals that we've got, that we kind of cycle through. So back in November of 2022, when ChatGPT came out, I thought this might be a good use for this tool. So I went in, I said, give me a meal plan for a family of 8 that's quick to prepare and healthy. And I got back some pretty mediocre outputs. So I did what you do with these tools, give it more information, more data. And, I said one of us is a pescatarian and the kids aren't very adventurous eaters, but I like to cook kind of fancier meals. Here's some of the meals that we're already eating that we're getting tired of. So then it gave me some better outputs and better ideas. And then custom GPTs came out. So if you haven't used custom GPTs, these are like mini models that you can train on a specific process or a specific task, and you can customize it and enter all sorts of instructions. So I thought this is a good use case. So I built the culinary creator. You don't have to know how to code to do this, right? You basically just go in and tell it what you want it to do. You do have to have a paid version of the tool to create these, but then anybody can use them with the free version. So basically, in the instructions, I just said, here's the appliances that I have to cook with. I'm going to ask you to brainstorm some main dish and side dish ideas with me. And then I'm going to ask you for specific recipes and generate an image of what that's going to look like because these are multimodal tools. I want you to give me the prep schedule so I know everything I got to get done on Sunday. So I'm ready to cook, and get dinner on the table in less than 30 minutes every night. And then give me the shopping list of all the different ingredients from all the recipes and put them together in one output. So now on Saturday nights, I don't even ask the kids anymore. I go right to the culinary creator. We brainstorm dish ideas. I ask it for the recipes that I want. It gives me the preparation schedule so I know everything I've got to get done on Sunday. And then it gives me my shopping list in the order that I shop in my grocery store. So this saves me hours every month. This one GPT alone is worth the $20 a month I pay for the tool, and I've got a dozen of these that I use personally. Now, I tell people, and the reason I'm telling you about this is because using these tools for your personal life will help you better understand how you can use these for your work life. And since I've started using these, I've been keeping this like running list of all the different ways I use the tools. I've got well over 100 items in that list, and these are just a few of the use cases. And I don't have time today to go through all of these, but I wanted to hit on some that are most relevant, especially when it comes to content repurposing and making the most of content you already have. So before I spend time creating new content and coming up with ideas for original content, especially for something that is, seasonal promotion, enrollment, recruitment, yield, melt campaigns, I always start by going back and thinking about what did we do before that worked? Look at previous campaigns across your institution, across different teams. Look for ones that were most effective, that resonated with their audiences. Collect different elements from those campaigns. Like, do you still have the project brief? Do you have the report of the outcomes from those campaigns? Do you have data around what specific content performed better than others? If you do, you can use these tools like strategic advisors. You can upload those results and those content assets, and then you just have to write an effective prompt to pull the right output out of that. So when I talk about prompting, lots of different ways to ask these tools to do things for you. But if you want really good outputs, the one of the foundation models that I use all the time is this race model. So this comes from Christopher Penn. He's a chief data scientist. He put this together. And basically, you give the tool a role, you tell it what part you want it to play, and then you tell it what action you're going to ask it to perform. What are you going to ask it to do for you? And so that way, as you're going through like all the rest of the questions you have and uploading all of your examples and giving it all the information, it already knows how it's going to be using that. So it's honing the model, it's priming the model. So once you tell it what you're going to ask it to do, then you give it the context, right? All the data you can, examples, resources, links to pages on your website or other websites, all sorts of information that's going to help make that output especially relevant to you, to your institution, to your audiences. And then finally, you ask it to execute. So run the actual prompt that you've got set up. So if you were looking at your previous campaign data, you could upload the plans, the report, some sample content, and then you could use a prompt like this. So give it a role. You're a higher education marketing expert. You tell it the action. I'm going to ask you to look through previous campaigns, content, come up with the suggest ways to reuse that content for our new campaign. And then I always say this. I always say, before you create a response, ask any questions that will create a better output. So I use that in almost every one of my prompts because the tool will know what information it needs to create a more effective output. And we may not always remember to put in all of that information. So then you give it the context, right? So let's say our new campaign is targeting potential undergraduate students instead of graduate students, if that's the use case that you uploaded to it. So based on previous campaigns and results, how can we repurpose, retarget, redistribute this content for that new audience? And then you ask it to execute. So provide your recommendations, please, and take your time. So it's been shown that telling these models to take their time often creates better output. I always say please and thank you because, maybe when the robot overlords come, they'll remember that I was at least polite to them. And we know that with our content, it's all about the audience, right? That's the most important thing for any content you're going to create. So how do you stay focused on who you're writing the content for and why it matters to them? One of the best ways to do that, keep that audience focus, is through personas. So I love a good persona. These are great to be able to hand out to your team, keep everybody on the same page, keep your audience top of mind. The problem with personas, though, is they're time consuming to create and they're resource heavy to build. You have to go out, interview all the people, you have to pull members of that audience together. You've got to take all that data and figure out what's most relevant. And then you got to put it together in these, pretty one pagers, hand them out to your team, and then just kind of hope that they're actually going to use them. So I found that by using AI, you can actually build these personas pretty quickly and pretty efficiently with the right prompt and the right data. Now, I'm not saying don't do your traditional persona creation, right? Still do that for your primary audiences. But we have so many audiences in higher ed that we need to connect with, so many different kinds of students out there, undergraduate, graduate, international, non-traditional, right? We just don't have time or resources to build personas for each one of them. So use AI to help you with that. Now, when I talk about data, it's important, especially depending on what version of the tool and what specific large language model you're using. Even with the paid versions, you have to make sure that your settings in the tool are set up so that your information doesn't get back in the model. Even then, unless you have an on-site or on-premise model or are using API calls within a locked environment, I always tell people don't use any medium or high risk data, no personal information, no PII or PHI. Use low risk data, anything that's already out on the internet. It's fair game because it's already been crawled and indexed by these tools anyway. So you want to make sure you are putting in data. So in higher ed, a lot of times we have common data sets with all sorts of information about our student body that is already public on our website. So let's say we're building a persona for a prospective undergraduate student. The first thing you do is you go into your large language model, you put in a prompt like this, you upload that data set, and you're a content marketing expert with an understanding of audiences. I'm going to ask you to help me come up with a primary audience, a persona for this institution. Give it the URL so it can go learn about your institution. And then give it all that context, right? Look at this common data set. Look at our student life page. Look at our institutional priorities. And then you give it all the questions that you would ask if you were doing an interview with an audience member to create a standard persona. So what are your initiatives, success factors, barriers, all those different questions that go into typical personas. So now it has all that context, all that information. It knows specifically what it needs to do. So then you tell it to execute. So create the persona, please. So then it'll come back with kind of a good high level persona that you can start using. And these are multimodal tools. So you can say, now create a headshot of this tool or of this persona. So now you've got all the parts and pieces that you need to give this out as a one pager. But where AI really steps out is you can now take your personas, whether you're traditional created or the new AI personas, and you can make them interactive. So I will take a persona and I'll create that same persona in multiple different large language models because they're different, they're trained different, they give you different information. And then I'll export all of those outputs as resource documents. And then you've got all those resource documents. You can go in and now you can build a custom GPT like potential Pat the undergrad. So you can upload resource documents to this. You can add instructions into the specific custom GPT so that now you have all the information that you've gathered from all of this research about your audiences that then is created this interactive persona that you can use. So now, once the persona is created, you can just start asking it questions like, what are your thoughts on our campaign content? And Pat will come back and tell you that. Is the language in that content easy to understand? Should the reading level be changed? It'll tell you whether or not it needs to be changed in there. What other information should be included to help you make your decision? All sorts of fantastic insights that you can gather from these different tools once they start answering questions. Now, there's a lot of different ways to use custom GPTs, and these are just a few of the different use cases. I know a lot of institutions, I've worked with a lot of different institutions that train email writers for leadership messages or for creating social posts or brand voice, drafts in your brand voice. It is great for doing content calendars where you can load in all sorts of information about events that are going on in the area or community events, national holidays, things like that. And it can come up with a posting schedule for you with ideas for different content. Storyboards and scripts for video, fantastic at this. Creating strategies for dealing with summer melt and yield. And then automating SEO tasks, fantastic for automating SEO tasks. You can put those into, I mean, nobody should be spending time writing meta descriptions anymore. AI is very good at that. And half the time, Google doesn't even use the meta descriptions we write anyway. It's great at acting like a strategic advisor. Great ways to build like chatbots, internal chatbots for answering FAQs. And then I mentioned the virtual personas, but it can also do virtual focus groups. So the nice thing about ChatGPT is that you can open up a blank ChatGPT prompt, and then you can actually use the @ sign in there, and it will allow you to select any of the custom GPTs that you have created personally. So you could select potential Pat the undergrad, and then you can ask Pat a question about some page on your site, and Pat will come back and tell you what they think about that. And then you can go down in that same thread and you could pull up a board member or somebody else and you could ask them a question. And then you can ask them to look at the other person's feedback and give input on that. So you can create these little miniature working virtual focus groups using multiple different personas. So really powerful and really interesting opportunities there. One of the things I always ask the personas when I'm talking with them is, where are you going to go to find the information that you want? What is your content journey going to look like? Because we know that the search landscape is changing, especially with Gen Alpha and Gen Z. They're no longer just using Google. They're looking on social. They're looking in communities like Reddit. They're searching using voice tools and AI. So how do we get found in all of those channels where all of our audiences are searching? You have to have the best content in those channels optimized for the audiences that are consuming there, which is overwhelming because we're in higher ed. We have limited time, we have limited resources, limited budgets. How can we possibly get more of our content out into more places? And then have that optimized for each different platform and for each of the audience members who are on those platforms. So really the only way to do that is through using AI. So tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity are fantastic at repurposing existing content. You can just go grab one of your high performing stories or blog articles, drop that into ChatGPT and say, you're a content marketing expert. I'm going to ask you to come up with several different 30 to 60-second TikTok scripts that are relevant to potential undergraduate students, optimized for discoverability on the platform. And within seconds, it will give you those draft scripts that you can then take and hand off to your social media interns because people don't want to hear from, some 50-year-old guy about why you should come to our institution. They want to hear from other students. They want to hear from other people that are their age on those platforms. So you can give that to them and say, take these scripts, put them in your own words, make them authentic, and come up with videos that we can post. So that's just one example of how you can repurpose for one platform based on an existing piece of content you have. And then there are also text to image generation tools. So you can just put in a prompt and it'll spit out an image. So lots of different issues around usage rights, copyrights. You can't technically own anything that's 100% AI generated. And we don't really know where the line is right now, how much human editing is needed before we can own this content. So be careful using these AI generated images and videos, out publicly. But these are great for internal presentations, for coming up with ideas to give your designer to help communicate the concepts that you have, the types of images you're looking for. Um, Especially if you're doing some like very, technical or research focused content. A lot of times the writer will have a good idea of what that image would look like, and then they can just work with one of these tools to build that out so that their designer can then um, create that image. So, like for example, I needed an image for presentation, and I knew conceptually what it was. I wanted to tell people they need to slow down AI adoption until they understand the risks. So I wanted a yield sign with a campus in the background with some students walking by. I tried that in Midjourney and ChatGPT, and it didn't give me exactly what I was looking for. So then, in the last few weeks, Gemini's come out with their new image tool, Nano Banana. So I was able to take a sketch that I did. See, I'm not artistic at all, right? I took this sketch, I put that into the tool, and I described what I wanted it to look like. And within seconds, it spit out this image, which was exactly what I was looking for. And now the nice thing is, instead of just using this image within my presentation, I was very easily able to turn that into an animation. And I don't think you can hear the audio in there, but it's all actually got audio of them walking across the street. There are other tools like Opus Clip that allow you to repurpose long form content. So with Opus Clip, you can take a long form video. So we could take the video of this whole presentation, dump the whole hour into Opus Clips, and it will go through and dynamically identify what it thinks are the most important parts of that video. It'll pull them out in 20 to 60-second segments, convert them from horizontal to vertical, and then put the text overlay right on the image or right on the video. So within minutes, you could have 10 to 15 different clips that you could repurpose on Reels and Shorts and TikTok. Lots of other tools downlisted below that also do similar sorts of things. Now, Descript is a video and audio editing tool that's AI powered. It can take clean audio that you had, and it can train audio. So if you're doing an interview with someone and the audio drops out or the mic cuts out or a truck drives by, you can train the tool on a clean piece of audio and then go back to where the audio dropped and just type in the words that they said, and it will sync those words up in the voice of the talent to their mouth movements. It can force eye contact with the camera. So if someone's reading off a script, it can make it look like they're looking into the camera. It will dynamically remove filler words and then stitch the video together so that you would never know the filler words were there. It can also create avatars. So here's an avatar that was generated within the script, and all you do is upload the script that you want it to read.
Hello, I'm Pat.
And basically he's saying, I don't know if you can hear him through my yeah, I don't know if you could hear that or not. Um, but basically, if you like these avatar tools, you can also do things like use tools like HeyGen. So HeyGen is a tool where um, you can train the tool on video of yourself. So I uploaded this short clip and I'm going to try this. Let me know, Jeff, if you hear the audio for this. I'm so excited about it. Okay. And so it will also dynamically translate audio. Ich bin so aufgeregt über die neuen Möglichkeiten und Chancen. So I speak German and Spanish. Estoy muy emocionado por las nuevas capacidades y oportunidades. And Korean. I'm just saying some AI opportunity. And I don't speak any of those languages, of course. I love watching myself speak Korean, though. Obviously, if you're going to use a tool like this to translate talking head video that you have, make sure you're transparent about using that tool. You don't want international students to come to your campus and expect your president to be able to speak fluent Korean unless they do. So make sure, well, it's one of the key things with using AI, make sure you are transparent when you are using it so people don't feel, your audiences don't feel like you're trying to trick them. Also, of course, you want to have someone who's a native speaker of that language review it. That is a service that HeyGen offers where they'll review your content for you. Runway is a text to video creation tool. So these tools have gotten so much better in the past few years. It's really incredible, the capabilities that they have. So basically, you just tell it what you want it to create, and it creates a video for you. So none of the video in these clips that I'm going to show you were actually ever shot. The places don't exist. The people don't exist. This is not CGI. It's just rendered from text. So let me show you a short clip from Runway. So I won't play that whole clip because then we got Google, which came out with its VO3 model. So now it gives you the capability to add dialogue into your videos. So you can see down here in the bottom, this is the prompt that was used to create this video. Take a listen. Okay, so Riz is basically short for charisma. Got it. And that's a verb as well. How will you know? Anything.
I will sell you everything.
Every business for you.
I can be whoever you want me to be. I am
This typing.
the old internet is dead. Panic is spreading worldwide tonight as the arrival of the unidentified vessel.
So even there, you can see pretty incredible capabilities. And then just 2 weeks ago, OpenAI came out with Sora 2. So now you can actually make people say things that you want them to say. So you can do this on anyone who has like shared their cameo on Sora. So here's Abe Lincoln talking about data.
My friends, no machine can ever replicate the truth. You cannot put your faith in digital. You must put it in people.
And then
No machine
here's me speaking on stage at Madison Square Garden.
can't trust nonsense in the digital world. You have to find people you trust.
And then, of course, there's, you know, the real best use cases for these tools. Right? A table of otters eating tacos, right? It's hard to beat that. So, but what are the use cases for higher ed from these, right? Incredible capabilities, lots of ways these can be used, you know, to help us augment the content we already have, creating B-roll, you know, but the biggest use case for these is probably going to be deepfakes. So if you have a crisis communications team, it would be good for them to understand the capabilities of these tools so that they can prepare for when your leadership or your faculty get deep faked, which they will. So just understanding the capabilities of these tools is as important sometimes as being able to use them to create content. So the next tool I want to talk about is Notebook LM. This is a great tool to look at multiple different resources and documents. You can create these notebooks, and then basically in a notebook, you can add a bunch of different resources. So the free version, you can add up to 50 different individual documents and data sets. The paid version can get up to 300 different data sets of all different types of information. You can put those documents in and ask it to do all sorts of different things with it. So it can start off by giving you an overview of all the information in all those documents. You can ask it to create a mind map of all of the information from all the various sources. You can break those down by, different categories. Great way to help organize large amounts of data. It can generate flashcards. So if you need to study or learn something, right? Great applications in this for teaching and learning space. Some instructors are already integrating this into their classrooms. You can have it create video overviews based on the topic. And then probably one of the most powerful features, and the one that most people know Notebook LM for, is you can create these custom audio overviews. So these are created as two-person podcast conversations. They recently added the ability for you to choose different formats. So it used to just be a deep dive, but now you can make it a brief or a debate or a critique. And you can also go in and tell them what they should focus on around that content so they can really answer your specific needs. And they've even updated it now so you can call into the podcast while it's going on and ask the host specific questions about that information.
Imagine a tool so it isn't to be used by thousands of schools, like in less than a year.
Yeah, kind of mind-blowing.
And then you got the institutions and the universities themselves. They'll scrambling to catch up, trying to figure out how they can manage this huge shift.
It's a fascinating story, and it's not something like that. Oh, wait.
That is a fantastic result.
So, and then you can guide that conversation however you want. So pretty impressive. So it's great. You can create all this content, but then there's still the human involved in much of this process. That's where automations come in. So there are different tools out there like Makeyear, Make, Zapier, and N8N that will allow you to string together multiple different tools and different elements within different tools. So for like in this example, you can start off with a Google Sheet. You can drop a new row in there that's just an idea that you had for a piece of LinkedIn content. It can go to your ChatGPT account and find the tool that you've trained specifically to write your really good LinkedIn posts. It can generate 5 or 6 different LinkedIn posts that you can go in and review, figure out which ones or parts of ones that you like, and then you can set those to publish directly to LinkedIn. I'm actually working on this process where you take one long form piece of video, you use a tool like Descript to output all the short form videos, then you drop the transcript into a Google Drive, and it goes out and it calls all your individual custom GPTs that can create different pieces of content based on your one original piece of content. These are all trained in your voice, trained on previous content that you've written. And then you can go in and approve those. And then once you approve it, it can schedule and post those. So incredible opportunities to be able to scale your content. I tell people all the time, if you want to make the most of your content, you need to look at your data. I don't tell people that anymore. I tell people you have to let AI look at your data. It does a much better job of looking at large data sets. I run pilot projects with a lot of institutions, and they start off in one of two different areas, either on the content creation side that tend to show like a 20 to 40% savings in time, or on the data analysis side, which tend to show 60 to 80% savings in time because it is so good at looking through data. So I love Google Search Console. It's a great tool. It gives you all sorts of information about how people are searching for on your site, what they're looking for, how well your site is performing. It's a great tool. I hate Google Search Console because it doesn't give you the information you want in the format that's most useful. If you do an export from it, it doesn't give you all of the data. So I always take my Google Search Console data and put it into this Looker Studio dashboard. So the template for this, I can send you the template, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll send you this template. You can just point it at your Google Search Console account and you'll get all this information. But you can see down here, 949,000 results, way more than I can look at. So in the past, I would just kind of go pick out the top 20 or 30. Now I just right click this, export this, throw this in ChatGPT, tell it it's a content marketing expert, come up with new content ideas based on what we're already ranking for. And then within seconds, it'll come up with 20 new content ideas. And then I just take those and I put those in potential Pat. And I say, hey, Pat, out of all these ideas, which ones are you most interested in and why? And Pat will come back and tell me that. So now you have stories that are targeted for a specific audience that are strategically relevant based on what you already rank for and have authority for, and that are tied to your institutional goals, depending on what information you've given these tools. I run a lot of website optimization projects, and I have this series of audits that I go through. And typically, when I start working with a new institution or organization, it takes, like in the past, it would take 2 to 3 weeks to get through all of these audits, to gather all the data, to make sure everything was accurate. Now I can do this process in 2 or 3 days. And most of that is just still pulling the right data sources together. But once you feed the data into the models, it is trained to understand what different parts and pieces to look at and where to find those correlations and opportunities for insights in there. And then you just have to go and validate and check all of those. There are some great public custom GPTs that I use all the time. Anybody can use this. The Mailed It email companion, based on a book from Ashley Budd and Day Kibbles that goes into the psychology of how people read emails. You can just dump your email in there. It will rewrite it to be the most relevant based on the goal that you're trying to get. Jobs GPT is a fantastic custom GPT where you can put in your current job title or job description, and it will tell you, it'll break your job down by tasks and tell you how much time integrating AI into your job could save you and where you might want to look at integrating AI. It can also tell you what your job might look like in 2 or 3 years based on the speed of change with AI and technology. A lot of times I'll go in, start working with a team, and I'll run their entire team through this. And you'll see that in 2 years, you're probably going to have the same number of employees, but every employee is going to be managing multiple different AI agents that are going to be doing a lot of their different work for them. So traditional role might be a data analyst. Future role might be a strategic insight manager for an AI agent team. When we start talking about like what's next in AI, it's really all about these AI agents. And the AI agents are going to increasingly improve in the amount of autonomy they have. So right now, like custom GPTs are kind of like AI agents. They're like lightweight AI agents. They can do little bits of a certain process. And I think these are temporary. I think these are training wheels for agents. And then the deep research models, they will actually go out and figure out what websites to visit, figure out what information to gather. You can watch their process as they're going through all the research and figuring out what information to give you. And then these automations, now they start integrating these third-party tools. You start giving them access to different accounts so that they can go in there and pull data from those. Chatbots will make decisions about when they need to hand off to a human person, where they're going to pull the data from. And then these workflow agents, these are going to be basically instead of a custom GPT that runs one process, these agents are going to run multiple processes in a complete workflow. And then we're going to get to these autonomous agents where we just tell it what we want it to accomplish, and it will figure out where it needs to go and how it needs to accomplish those. And then we will just have to, go in and put in the guardrails so that we check and validate at certain points. And then I think we're going to get to these personal agents where we are all going to have personal agents trained just on our interests, what our focus is, and it's going to be helping us and facilitating doing a lot of the manual work that we're currently doing. I tell people all the time, AI integration is not a technology project. AI integration is a change management project. Please reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn. One thing that I just want to have you take away from this is that none of us are really ready for change, right? Not until we step into it. When my daughter jumped out of the plane that day, she wasn't fearless. She was ready enough. She trusted her equipment. She trusted her instructors. She trusted the training that she had gotten. And she jumped scared. We both did. But when she landed, she took off her helmet and her goggles, and she looked at me and said, I didn't know that the sky could look that different. So that is where we are right now with AI. AI gives us the opportunity to see our work from a different perspective, to see what we do from a new set of eyes and a new viewpoint. The leaders of tomorrow aren't the people who are asking, how do we integrate AI? They're the people who are asking, how do we make change feel possible? How do we help our people take the next step? So the question isn't, are you ready? The question is, will you jump? Thank you so much.
That was awesome, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll do have time for just a couple questions, but I'm going to close it out before people drop off. First quick comment. I just watched an episode of Morning Show last night, and it's about deep fakes. So everyone, you got to watch this episode because it's like your worst fear about deep fakes, that video stuff. And that goes to this question, but we will send the recording out. And I put a link in the chat to contact us or Brian or Mackie Strategies. So please fill that out if you're interested. But the question I want to get to first, Brian, is if we're using AI to develop videos on a tool like Sora, how should we disclose that information? If everyone seems like the AI police calling out content that's fake, even if it's well intended. On the other hand, if you come out and say use the AI, there tends to be pushback. So
Yeah. And a lot of that, you have to think about who the audience is for that. How are you intending for this to be used? So SUNY, I think it was SUNY Oneonta, put out a social post when everybody was doing the, make your own action figure, and they made their mascot into an action figure, but their students were the ones that were consuming that content. And the students were like, we have graphic designers on campus. Why are you not paying students to do this or giving students the opportunity to be on your social page? Why are you outsourcing that to AI? So like Arizona State University created a video promoting an AI event that they were doing, and they made that video entirely using AI. So right now, it's important that you think about the purpose of the content that you're creating and who the audience is and what their perception of that content might be. A lot of times I say, if you're going to use AI, I would be blatant at this point about where you're using it. Put a caption down there saying, this image was created by Midjourney, or in your video, you may even want to put it like in the video, this, B-roll was created by Sora. So we're still at a real tricky point right now with using this publicly, especially with, Gen Z and Gen Alpha. But I think we're going to get into the point pretty quickly where that's kind of commonplace.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I have time for one more question I'm going to take here. We know that ChatGPT and other similar tools like to hallucinate, make things up just to make sure we're happy. How can we trust these tools to accurately assess data then?
And I say, don't trust the tools. Make sure that you it still is up to us as the experts to be able to go in and validate. A lot of times I'll run a test on a very small data set just to make sure that it's doing what I expect it to be doing. And then when I run it on a large data set, I will ask it for specific references to where it found the insights, and I will go check those.
Yeah, yeah.
So the one thing that AI cannot do is take responsibility. That is
Yeah.
still very much a human thing.
It's just like if you had your grad student or personal assistant that was really good, you'd still have to check everything, right?
Still check them. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Brian. That was always awesome to watch your presentation, your content. And again, contact us in the chat. There's a link in the chat if you want more, want to stay connected. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay.